What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Anime Casuals. I am Lucky, and today we are talking about Devilman Crybaby. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Lucky, why are you talking about this anime? This came out 3 years ago, and shouldn't you have seen it sooner? Or what happened there? Well, I originally saw the very first episode of this, thought it may have been a little bit too much for me, and which is kind of surprising because I enjoy shows like Redo of Healer, but now that I have been tainted by the darkness, I felt like I could go into it. Also, I lost in an anime game and Johnny forced me to watch it. If you guys do want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description box down below. So, I come to you guys today in utter amazement. I actually really enjoyed this show, and not just because of the titties and the ass and all the crazy fan service in here. It actually asked a lot of philosophical questions. Before I go any further, I just want to let you guys know, I won't be spoiling the end or anything like that, but I do have to get into some story points in order to kind of convey why this had such a big impact on me. So before we go any further, I just wanted to let you guys know that, and let's get straight into the video. Devilman Crybaby follows Akira Fudo, very empathetic person who ends up crying for other people whenever they are in pain. His friend, Ryo Asuka, is, let's just say, a little less empathetic and is pretty cold towards a lot of things, almost seeing them in a utilitarian type of way, seeing them as tools for a means to an end. Well, Ryo became a professor over in America and ends up coming back to see Akira and takes him to a quote-unquote party. Well, long story short, Akira ends up getting possessed by a demon thanks to Ryo's help. Ryo actually wanted him to get possessed by a demon called Amon. After Akira ends up being possessed by Amon, he actually ends up keeping his humanity because of his pure heart, and he uses this to fight other demons. Now, I just wanted to set up the preface to this story just so anybody who hasn't watched this can kind of get an idea of where it's coming from. And like I said, the first episode is very heavy. It almost feels like they were trying to get anybody off this train who wasn't going to stick with it. There's a big sex party. I can't really show a lot of it here, but drugs are being passed around and all this stuff. That's what really evokes demons to come out. But it's after Ryo actually starts killing people that Amon and other demons end up forming. Now, I'll be honest with you, I came into this with the expectation that this was going to be, oh, it's just another one of Johnny's fan service animes, you know, he liked it for the ass, he liked it for the titties, like I said before, but man, this series went really deep. It really started asking questions about humanity itself. Even though Akira is this very powerful quote-unquote devil man because he still has the heart of a man, he's still very empathetic and still holds a lot of his old values. The story really evolved from the simple Dionysian setting where everybody's trying to seek out pleasure to really asking a really difficult question. What makes humans different than demons? And it turns out, not a whole lot. Sure, their physical appearance may be completely different, but what's on the inside? You start to really ask that question quite a bit as you go through the series, and you start to see how Akira never really changes, but the people around him start to. Now, before I go any further, I do want to place an emphasis on the fight scenes and the animation itself. The animation is really good. It does take a little bit getting used to, I'll be honest with you. When I saw the first episode and saw them on the track for the track and field, it did seem a little weird to me, but I soon got very used to it. I think, at least for me, it's just really difficult to switch anime styles because I'm so used to seeing things like shonen or very mainstream anime, and going to this style really took me a little bit, but once I did, I really started to appreciate the aesthetic of it. You see, sometimes anime today, and this isn't a knock on any anime today, but sometimes it feels like it's just so realistic that you kind of forget that you're watching anime. It just feels like a movie. But this one, I never really forgot about that, and I always remembered it as some piece of art, and to me, that was actually really special. Now, I know what you're thinking, well, doesn't that break the immersion factor? Well, not for me. I definitely got immersed in this once I started embracing myself into the anime, and actually once I did that conscious step of actually stepping into the anime, I started getting very involved in these characters, even to the point where I started feeling some of Akira's pain whenever he would cry for somebody that was sad. Now, I've been throwing this term empathy around a lot, and I know a lot of people end up getting it mixed up with sympathy, because empathy a lot of times kind of can seem like sympathy, but I do want to read you the definitions real quick. So, sympathy is just simply feelings of pity and sorrow for someone else's misfortune, so you feel sorry for them. Whereas empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. You're really putting yourself on their level and you're able to understand them from a human point of view. That's where the series really got me. Akira has this uncanny ability to tell what's in people's hearts and really cry for them, really cry the tears that they can't shed themselves. But soon, for reasons that I won't get into right now since they will be a huge spoiler, humanity ends up turning on itself, really wondering who's demon and who's human. And that's where I think the beauty of this series lies. Now, I'm actually going to spoil literally the ending of Watchmen, so if you guys don't want to see that, you guys are more than welcome to check out some of our other stuff on the channel. Now, I'm not going to go too into the story of Watchmen, but basically this really smart guy, Ozymandias, ends up plotting to make this really strong guy, Dr. Manhattan, literally the enemy of the world. And it works because there's something about humans that prosper when there is a common enemy. This is where we start to fall into a dangerous system where we end up just finding an enemy and destroying them. But if there's no enemy, then we tend to start self-imploding. We start to point out just the littlest differences between us, and if there is a difference, we start to highlight it and make it as big as possible so that we can make that person an enemy. And that's what this show really highlights, is it's not really the demons that we have to worry about, it's mostly the humans. In fact, the demons end up using this to their advantage. They start realizing that, hey, humans are gullible. They'll literally kill each other if it's out of fear. Now, that's about as much of the story that I want to get into, so if you guys are watching this and are still really interested, I really highly recommend you guys go watch that on Netflix. And this was a really surprising one. This wasn't as much of a punishment anime as it was an enlightenment anime, which makes me feel kind of bad that I made Johnny watch Handshakers the last time he lost one of these games, but we'll let bygones be bygones. Overall, Devilman Crybaby really puts a shock to your system, but also uses that shock value for actual moral arguments. I think a lot of these arguments are actually still very valid today, and we definitely need to be talking about them. Overall, I'm actually very disappointed in myself for giving up on this series so soon, about 3 years ago, but hey, that's what anime is all about. Luckily, Netflix still has it around. As you saw in this video, it is very gory. There is a lot of nudity in it, so if that's not for you, that's totally fine. But ultimately, this gets 2 casual thumbs up from yours truly. As always, guys, don't forget to keep it casual.